Hey guys, Rollout here with another casual unboxing, and inevitably, we're going to be taking a look at the ZOIDS Aggressive Blade Liger. At one point, I said that I probably wasn't going to get this, and, well, that just seems to be the theme of the month now, doesn't it? At this rate, I'm probably going to do something stupid, like buy all of the Bora Cull. But before I make that mistake, I want to talk a little bit about how I got my hands on this. I've said in the past that the aftermarket prices on this figure are insane, and that was one of my deterrents, but a little while back, HobbyLink Japan got some fresh new stock. I don't know if they just found it in a warehouse somewhere, or if this figure was actually reissued, but whatever the case, I was able to get it for retail price, and so I had to jump on that. My problem was, I still hadn't seen all of ZOIDS Chaotic Century, the anime that this is from. So, while I waited for this figure to arrive, I finally binge-watched the whole thing from start to finish. And at the end of the day, I can say it's a solid okay out of 10. It's fine. Still not my favorite series, but, you know, it is classic, and if you're a ZOIDS fan, you probably should watch it. It's just, you know, a little slow, the action is sort of dull, the animation is alright, but man, that English dub is very cringy. But I did it. I watched it. I still haven't seen Fusors, but, you know, I don't really need to. And hey, now, I haven't had a chance to talk about this since I haven't made a ZOIDS video in a while, but they're finally rebooting ZOIDS again. This year, I think in the summer, if not at the end of the year, there's going to be a new ZOIDS series called ZOIDS Wild. And while I prefer these articulated figures rather than the traditional motorized ones, some of them look pretty cool, and I haven't been making videos for as long as ZOIDS has been essentially dead. So it might be fun to take a look at some of these new designs, because I have a YouTube channel. Why not? Anyway, let's finally open up the Blade Liger. This has been sitting on my shelf for a little while, in the box, while I finished up the series. Again, we have the ZOIDS Aggressive packaging, which is super egregious and unnecessary. I really do like the brushed metal effect to it, and the art style of the packaging is super cool, but man, it does not present the figure very well. It's just in boring plastic and cardboard, and it's so big and wasteful, and I've talked about that at least twice before. Let's crack it open. I will say, after having watched the entirety of the series, I feel that Blade Liger is probably more representative of the anime than I once thought. Before, I wasn't sure if I wanted Blade Liger because I usually prefer, like, the first form of a character or a mecha rather than, you know, their final form or their upgraded form. And so I thought I might have wanted a Shield Liger to represent Chaotic Century. Ooh. I'm a little hyped up on coffee. I might slur my words a little bit. But anyway, thought I might want a Shield Liger since it was more classic and it was Van's first Zoid of the series. But like I said, after having watched it, not only is Blade Liger probably my favorite part about the entire series, but he has this Zoid for longer, and Shield Liger existed, you know, a good almost 20 years, you know, before the anime actually came out. And this is like the first Liger that is exclusive almost to the anime. So I feel, again, it represents it on the whole a bit more. I think there's actually some extra tape here, so let's get into that. I mentioned that the action of the series is generally pretty slow, and that's one of the reasons that I think Blade Liger is probably my favorite part about the whole thing, because, like, the boosters and the way it, like, runs through enemies and slashes them with its swords, it injects some much-needed sense of speed into the series that was missing previously. And while the action still, you know, doesn't even come close to New Century, it's much better after Blade Liger is introduced. God, this tape is sneaking up on me, man. There's always one more. Okay, there we go. Finally. let's release this guy first and foremost. And is there tape on this too? Wouldn't surprise me. Of course there is. Okay. Let's get this bottom tray out as well. Oop. Okay. Plastic. Be gone with you. Alright, so we got the tail, we have the stand adapter, and the attack boosters. The AB on the package stands for attack booster, because it comes with these. He only uses these like twice in the entire show. They look super cool, but I'm not sure if I'm actually going to display him with them, just because of how little use they see. But for the sake of getting more of this plastic out of the way, we have this weird like film on top. It's not a clamshell like I feel it probably should be. This was the same on all of Liger Zero's accessories. It's real dumb. That's real dumb. This actually came out before Liger Zero though. So it'll be interesting to kind of backtrack and maybe see how the line progressed into Liger Zero. That almost flew across the room. That could have been bad. Anyway, I don't know what I was talking about, but we're here now. This is gone. And then we of course have the twist tie here, which is overly twisted. That's going to be crazy. I'm actually going to unleash this guy off camera and come back once we've done so. Oh, would you look at that? It's untied. The magic of video. Isn't it spectacular? Okay. So here he is. Look at him. He's already pretty much put together out of the box. We don't have the sort of Liger Zero situation where we have to attach the armor or anything, but we still do have to add the tail and swap out the stand adapter piece. This is interesting. He's got a little like fin on the bottom of his gun, which might make things a little trickier to get to this. Huh, there's actually like a screw under there. That's interesting. Might mean that this piece actually stays in a little bit better than some of the others because there's actually two pegs. Anyway, here we have him. All ready to go? Hello? Hello? There we go. So the tail is a little bit more like the Genesis Ligers, where it's much thicker, which means the wire doesn't really hold a shape as well as it does on Liger Zero, but it does mean it's a little bit more solid. It doesn't wiggle around as much. Here is the head. Of course, all of these probably move out of the way. I just want to take a look at some of the details and kind of go over the articulation, and then I'm going to mess around with him on my own and come back with some first impressions. But let's open up the cockpit. I've been wondering how difficult this is to do, because there isn't really like a tab or anything to it. It opens up this way, but I don't know if I can actually get my finger in there. I just cut my nails, so this is going to be a problem. Anyway, the cockpit opens. I might get back to that a little bit later. Let's take a look at his mouth. Yeah, in the promotional images, I always thought that the mouth of this version of Blade Liger looked a little bit weird. That's actually kind of loose. Don't know how I feel about that. But I feel like the hinge for the lower jaw is just like a little bit too high up. So when his mouth is opened, it kind of ends up looking a little bit strange. On top of that, he actually has too many teeth. I don't know why Kotobukiya insists that Blade Liger should have more teeth than the original model and the anime CGI rendering actually has, because this is the same on their their master model kit as well. He has too many teeth. He should only have like 2 small teeth up here, and these ones aren't nearly as close together, but he just looks a little bit strange with so many teeth in his mouth. So I'm probably actually going to keep his mouth closed for the most part, which is a shame because it's always nice to have your Ligers kind of roar, but oh well. It's probably my least favorite part about this whole figure that I've seen so far. Anyway, we have the little bits that open up to deploy the shield. This is really interesting. There are some like tubes attached to the back of the head here that then reattach up there. And it's a very, very rubbery plastic, so like that doesn't seem to get in the way very much. Of course, these sort of get in the way, so we can't articulate the head all that much. Does this have any rotation or anything to it? Nope, seems like his gun on the bottom is completely static, unfortunately. What about this? All right, that opens up. We have the boosters inside. Huh. All right, just seems like those are on a single hinge. Which is also a little disappointing because in the show, this like double hinges up and then is on like a pivot, and it's probably like that on the original toy. And you know, it does some pretty cool like maneuvers like side to side in the show as it attacks people with its swords. And it doesn't seem like you can do that here. I mean, it's fairly elegant, but that does seem like a pretty big limitation, unfortunately. The tail is pretty cool. It's a little bit like the Liger Zero Jaeger unit's tail with like the little fins on the side. Of course, this came first, though. You do have the little guns, which I don't think it ever uses in the show. That's something that ZOIDS does a lot. It puts guns on the end of a Liger's tail and then just like doesn't use them ever. It has kind of an unfortunate screw placement back there. The leg joints here are actually a little bit loose, I'm noticing. Which is a little disappointing. Hopefully that doesn't become too much of a problem. His claws are nicely painted, but of course, you know, you don't have like the strike laser claw details like you had on the Liger Zero, so a little less interesting there. No effect parts on this guy at all, which I think is a little bit disappointing because in the show he like deploys his blades and they have like a laser effect to them, and so that would have been something very cool to have. But as you can see here, the blades hinge up and come down. It actually looks a little bit hollow up here, so unfortunate there. These can come down, I think, about that far. They might be able to go down a little bit further, but I don't want to risk breaking something in there, so I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, these are, I was expecting that to be like a molded detail, but that's another like rubber tube. So that's interesting. Very nice. You got some cool detail inside there. But anyway, these blades come out, so he can slash people with those. That is very cool. Interestingly, he doesn't actually use his teeth or his claws that much. He pretty much almost exclusively relies on his blades in the show, which seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity. You can also bring these up forward and you can shoot with his guns. It would be cool if these opened up and like deployed the little like attachments that go on here. He has like a sight and a Gatling gun that kind of deploy from his leg and attach onto these. That's super cool. You also have the little fins on the side here, which should come out. Maybe those are on a double hinge. Well, I'll figure that out later, but for now, there is Blade Liger. So I've had some time to mess around with him. I've attached the attack boosters here. We'll look at those in a second, but it's kind of funny because I feel sort of the same way about this figure as I do about the show it comes from. It looks cool. It's It's nice to have, but it's a little rough around the edges. And I don't know if all of the problems I have with it are just my copy of the figure, or if this is a serious case of poor quality control. But like I mentioned, a lot of the joints are super loose, and sometimes it makes it hard to pose, especially in the head here. If I want to lift his head up, the joint is so loose that the little rubber tubes actually cause it to come down, and that's sort of a shame. I also noticed that because of this armor around the ankle, the articulation is super limited there, and just because of how loose the shoulders are, you're also limited in that way, so there's only so much you can do with the legs. There's about just as many joints as the other two Zoids Aggressive Ligers I've taken a look at, but I find them less effective, probably just because of the quality control. As you can see here, I've gotten the cockpit open. It has the 2 seats inside, which is pretty cool. But once you close that, it does become very difficult to open. You have to get your nail just right on this blue piece here to prop that open. I was also able to find this little panel here at the bottom for the shield deployment, but actually bringing that out means you can't open the mouth as much, which again isn't too much of a problem because I don't like the way it looks with the mouth open anyway, but it's probably worth noting. These come out on double hinges to get out of the way, which is fairly nice. These also come out on double hinges here, but very difficult to do so, and it could just be tight and a little bit rickety on mine. You'll notice here there's like a little stress mark on the hinge there. That was like that right out of the packaging. It wasn't, my own error that caused that. The hinges back here are fairly good, but here's another issue. You can see on this one, that was pretty stuck because there's actually some glue left over on the inside there, which is very scary to try and unpry. There's also, I think I noticed some glue on top of this leg as well. So just some really poor quality control, unfortunately. These legs are just sort of flopping all over the place. It's really unfortunate because like I've said in the past at least, this line so far has been pretty good in my experience, especially as far as quality control goes. This guy is more loose than Murasame Liger, which came before him, and that is a problem. Although it is good to know that they solved a lot of this with Liger Zero, because he is dead solid. All right, let's take a look at the attack boosters. First of all, here they are in sort of the booster mode. They just sort of swing back. They're only on a single hinge. I thought there might have been a secondary joint up here so you could actually move them forward a little bit, but that is not the case. They look a little bit too far back in my opinion, and maybe a little bit too large. I don't know. Kotobukiya sometimes likes to stylize these a little bit, and I feel like maybe they could be a little bit smaller. I also imagined these in the show being gray. I feel like that was not white in the show, which is, again, a little bit inaccurate, but oh well. Again, I don't plan on displaying him with these, but it is neat that they included them, I suppose. So as boosters, you can open these sections up here and deploy these secondary little thrusters up top, which is pretty neat. And of course, those can go along with the boosters found underneath here. So we can go super fast, and then you can, forget about these 2 episodes later. But it also allows him to, I guess, slice through things faster because these can come down. Unfortunately, these joints here are also a little bit loose as well, and with the added weight, that all feels a little bit fragile, and I'm a little bit worried about the added weight here making those even more loose over time, which is, again, another reason why I'm going to choose not to display him this way. Again, just like on the swords up here where that's a little bit empty, there's some empty plastic here as well, which I don't like the look of. It's just I don't know. There's just something that seems a little bit less quality about this figure than the other Zoids aggressive Ligers that I've played with. Now, another feature of the attack boosters is just like these little guns up here when you bring these swords forward. You can also bring the boosters forward as well. You got to get things out of the way, but once you do, the little gun extends up top here. And that is actually a pretty cool look. I like the way that is done. But again, I'm just not sure it's necessary. And with all of the like loose joints on this guy, these added appendages just make things even more hard to deal with. So I'm probably just going to take these off. I'll show you how they attach here. I actually haven't pulled these off yet, so wish me luck. They're a little bit tight, and again, I'm really worried about stressing something on this pin here. So I'm gonna try to pull these off, but hopefully, ooh, I can do it with these. That's very scary. I recommend committing to either attaching these or leaving them off. Because I don't know if that's worth it. Like I said, I'm super afraid of stressing or even breaking it at this point. But these little caps that go in here seem to just go in via friction. They aren't actually plugged in or anything, which I suppose is worth noting when you try to remove them. Because while they can be a little bit tricky to get out, at least, you know, you don't have to get some tweezers and fight against the additional friction of a peg. They're just sort of slotted in there. I hope those don't get lost. That's all I can say. So yeah, there you go. There is Blade Liger back to normal, and this is probably the way I'm going to display him. So let's do some quick comparisons here without bumping the camera, if possible. This is just, It's not fun to play with, I'm gonna be honest, just because of these loose joints. But anyway, here he is with the later blue Liger with a sword, the Murasame. They look pretty nice together. You can kind of see the evolution of the series. This is the most recent Zoid, not including Wild, and this is the first, you know, anime exclusive Zoid here. You can kind of see a lot where this guy borrows from this one. And then here he is with Liger Zero as well, who is, you know, after some time playing with him, probably my favorite Zoids Aggressive release, just because of his ease of access and just the nostalgia value that he has. But man, just comparing these two together, like quality-wise, it's really apples and oranges. It makes me a little disappointed in the Zoids Aggressive line because I love this guy so much, and Murasame is pretty close to Liger Zero in quality, but this guy really let me down. Like, I'm kind of rushing to get this video done at this point so that I can just put him on a shelf and kind of leave him there without having to play with him too much because, like I said, I'm a little bit disappointed with this, and it is probably, you know, my least favorite Zoid series of the three. So I hate to end on a bummer note, but he looks cool. Well, yeah, he looks cool, and I love this Zoid design. If you want to risk the quality control, I'd say maybe go ahead and get it, especially if you're a super big fan of Chaotic Century, but I'm really not sure if it's worth gambling on the aftermarket prices this guy goes for. So take a risk if you want to, but otherwise, maybe just pick one of the other Ligers instead. So until next time, this has been Rollout, signing off.